let's take a step back, going back to New York and the late 70s, CBGBs and that era. You were in a couple bands, and you had a stint where you were playing with Steve Marriott. Is that
I
right?
never played in a band with them, but we became
Okay.
friends. We became really good friends.
Mhm.
And just a sidebar here,
Yeah.
CBGBs came a little later. When the Ramones started. I mean, later from Nobody's, that club.
Yes.
That wasn't a lot. That wasn't a music club. It was a bar. But I wasn't really a CB's guy. Like I've been there. I went there. I played there. But I was a Max's Kansas City guy. Like
Mhm.
CB's was more of a punk alternative. I was more of a Faces, Exile on Main Street
Yeah.
cat.
Rockers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
rock and roll.
Yeah.
So I didn't stay. I wasn't a lot at CBGB's, but I played there with Joan. I played there with my bands.
Is
Um,
that is that where you first saw Joan
I
play when
saw,
she
yeah,
was
I
the
saw the
Runaways?
Runaways. Yeah.
Was that
Uh,
at CBGB?
yes, it was. Yeah, and
What
that
what's
was
your
years
what's your
before, obviously.
recollection? What's your recollection of that?
God, it was so long ago. I don't remember. I mean, I remember me and my friends went, probably the same friends. Uh, we went to see an all girl band. It was like, what is this? And it was rocking. It was cool. And Joan was great. So,
Yeah.
thumbs up.
Fortuitous, years later, you would end up connecting.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. But
before
then
before
it was almost, we went because we heard about them, we read about them, we wanted to see what this was, right? We
Yeah.
wanted to see what it was. Because I didn't hear a lot of them on the radio.
Right.
So me and my friends wanted to see what this band was, this all girl band. And they were great.
Yeah, the mythology and the legend is incredible. And before we get to Joan and you linking up with her, I want to quickly. Steve Marriott is a personal hero of mine as well. Music he did with the Small Faces and Humble Pie. And I'm curious, at the time you linked up with him, what phase of his career was he in? Was that post Humble Pie, while he was doing his
Oh
solo
yeah.
efforts? Yeah.
He still had versions of Humble Pie.
Yeah. Right.
I met him when I think it was the last Humble Pie record, Go for the Throat, I think it was.
Yeah.
But Carol, my wife, Carol Kay is a publicist. She worked at Lieber Krebs as a publicist. Lieber Krebs was a very famous management company. Aerosmith, Nugent, Def Leppard, on and on. Humble Pie.
Yep.
Later, this is way past the Rock and the Fillmore. And so Go for the Throat, that was Steve, Bobby Tench, who just passed away, also played with Jeff Beck. See, everything's connected.
Hmm.
um, Sooty Jones, and Jerry Shirley on drums.
Right.
That was when I met Steve. They lived, him and Pam, his wife, and their kid Toby, who's like this grown-up guitar player now. They had an apartment in the village, so we spent a lot of time hanging out there. And also, when me and Carol would have a fight, I would go stay with Steve and Pam,
Wild.
and we became really good friends. And I could close my eyes and see Steve and me on the couch with guitars and him singing full voice, like Rock and the Fillmore voice
Yeah.
in my ear, and teaching me how to sing, like telling me, yeah, man, you gotta sing from down here. And funny enough, he had his guitars under the bed was probably the guitar he used on Rock and the Fillmore, not in a case, just thrown under the bed, or one of those guitars that he was famous for. But we were looking through. I don't know. His closet was open. I said, "Oh man, where'd you get these shoes?" He says, take them, man." So what's the history? He said, "I wore them on top of the Pops with the Small Faces when we did
Oh,
Itchy Park or something." So I still have those.
wild. Amazing.
I tried to wear them, but his feet were a lot smaller than mine. He was a little guy. But we hung out a lot. We hung out a lot. I had some really interesting times together. We got high too a lot.
Yeah, he was
Uh,
apparently that around that time he was a pretty wild dude. Is that right?
he told me this was my first sort of notice on the wall. We were sitting. So he had, after Humble Pie, he put together these bands. One was called Packet of Three, and they played a place here that was another famous club called the Cat Club in New York. So the bus was parked outside. I was sitting on the bus with Steve, and we were doing blow. I guess at this point it doesn't matter. And I kept taking that back to do more, and he said, You should cut down on that stuff, mate. And then my brain just went, oh, that's not a good sign. you know, and I'll never forget that. That was the first notice on the
Wow.
wall that maybe I was going too far. But I loved him. He was great. He was my favorite singer. Him, Paul Rogers, Terry Reid.
Yeah.
Those. That's the singer. Of course, Rod.
Hmm.
Those are the singers that really, put a run in my stocking, as they say, when I was a teenager, listening to that stuff.
Absolutely.
And
Sure.
we saw Paul Rogers. I think Carol's doing his publicity. They were playing at BB King's in Times Square, and we went to see him. And dude, he started singing, and I got all teary because his voice was just as strong as it was when he was that kid in Free.
Yeah.
And I've had a chance. I was in a band with Simon Kirke. We've done events together, so I've done All Right Now plenty of times. And yeah, that's one thing. Another sidebar is like through my career, I've been lucky enough to play with a lot of these people that I spun their vinyl when I was a kid.
Yeah. Incredible.
I've had a chance
What a
to play
privilege.
Mississippi Queen with Leslie West and be his pal. And, you know, I never played on stage with Steve, but we played plenty of stuff in his apartment. Um, and of course, jumping around, the stuff that I do most of now, more before, I still do them now, but before COVID, there's this crew of us that are like, Will Lee, Liberty DeVito from Billy Joel's band, Jeff Carlisi from 38 Special, who else? Rob Arthur, who plays with Frampton for the last 25 years, plays with a lot of people. We're like a crew, see? So when there's ever these charity events around the country, they always call us. The substitutes if somebody can't make it. Paul Schaefer's done them. That's given me the ability to be in this all-star band for 50 events over the last 10 years, where I'm backing up Mavis Staples, Brian Wilson, Smokey Robinson, now I can't, Darlene Love.
Amazing.
I mean, you can see it on my Wikipedia page. Playing like 3 songs with Smokey Robinson, playing in my room with Brian Wilson. It's a pretty magnificent career. And I couldn't ask for anything more. I don't have a band, like I said, but I do this new music.
We can get to that. I want to go back. What allowed you to get to this place was your ultimate meeting with Joan Jett and joining the Blackhearts, which you
Right.
joined during the I Love Rock and Roll sessions. Is that right?
Yeah. So once again, Carol, so Joan Jett and Kenny Laguna, her manager, they didn't have an office yet, so they were friends with Steve Lieber of Lieber and Krebs, so they would use one of the rooms there as their office. So Carol became friendly with Joan and Kenny. They were looking for a guitar player. Carol said, "Do you want to go down and jam with Joan Jett?" I said, "Yeah, she's great." And, long story short, I wound up joining the band. They were cutting the I Love Rock and Roll record. We wound up, except for Crimson and Clover and Little Drummer Boy, which was Eric Idle, Eric Amble. Eric Idle's Monty Python.
Yes.
Eric Amble, who's a great guitar player, great producer. I redid all the stuff except for those 2 songs. He played the break on Crimson. I played rhythm on that. He had left the band, so we kind of redid everything. And then we hit the road. We got into a small, what are they called?
Minivan or
It was bigger than a minivan. It wasn't a tour bus. It was
Okay.
between a tour bus and a minivan.
Yeah. At that point, did Joan have success from I know she put out Bad Reputation.
Well, yeah, she had cult success.
Cult Six, right.
Right?
But I Love Rock and Roll is what.
Yeah, I Love Rock and Roll just blew it up.
Yeah,
and it happened as we were on the road. So the record comes out, we're playing clubs. All of a sudden the clubs are packed. Then all of a sudden we're playing theaters. Then all of a sudden we're playing stadiums and we're opening for ZZ Top or the Police or something like that. It literally happened while we were on the road. And every week they would bring the music papers, Billboard, Record World. Was it Record World? Is that what it's called?
I don't
Yeah.
know.
The industry papers, magazines. You could see I Love Rock and Roll climbing up the charts. But we
Must
were
be
in the
big.
middle of, excuse me, we were in the middle of this hurricane. Or a tornado, let's say a tornado.
Tornado being the tour or the
Yeah,
yeah
like we didn't know what was
everything.
going on. It was just
Yeah,
getting bigger.
yeah,
All of a sudden we have a proper tour bus,
yeah.
and then we
Amazing.
have 2 tour buses. And then that's it. And then we traveled the world a couple of times and we did all those, right? But it was very consistent.
Yeah, you guys were always on the road.
Tour,
Is that
come
right?
back, do the
Yeah.
second record. Go out on tour, come back, do the third. It was that.
And you co-wrote a number of songs through after I Love Rock and Roll throughout
Yeah, I think it
the
was like
span.
13 songs.
Yeah, a lot of really great ones. And tell me
Thank you.
how because Joan and Kenny were their unit. How did you fit into it, and how did you start the co-writing with them? What was that?
Uh, well, I mean, she was my bandmate. She was like my sister, right? So we were like best friends back then. We were just, some of it was off the road, like a complete, like a session. Okay, we're gonna meet out at the studio and we're gonna write. And it was just me and Joan with 2 guitars, or it would be in a hotel room, or hey, Joan, I got this idea, or Joan would say, hey, what do you think of this? It's just that.